We're continuing our performance review series focusing on the running backs today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Tuesday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the NFL. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Well, folks, just like we did yesterday and evaluated the quarterbacks of the Buffalo Bills roster to consider what the Bills have and what they need to set the tone for our offseason discussions, today we are going to examine the running backs: Devin Singletary, James Cook, Nyheim Hines, Tywan Jones, and Reggie Gilliam. We'll start with Devin Singletary, a 2019 third-round pick, number 74 overall. He's 25. He turns 26 in September. His contract is expired. So the Bills will need to consider if they want to bring him back, which we'll talk about in just a moment. In 2022, he carried the football 177 times, gained 819 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. That's 4.6 yards per carry. He had 38 receptions for 280 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And then in terms of touches from scrimmage, Singletary had 215 touches, 1,099 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And that's the highest yards from scrimmage of his career. Actually, it's just 1 more than last year, but 1,099 scrimmage yards. So that's back-to-back seasons for Singletary with over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. He played 65% of the Bills' offensive snaps, no snaps on special teams. As far as his 2022 review, Devin Singletary continued to prove exactly who he is in the NFL, which to me is a reasonable 1A starter, right? I think he's a solid, average, starting NFL running back. Not an overly dynamic player, but solid. I appreciate that he's proven to be extremely durable, right? You think about running backs, lots of injuries. Devin Singletary's been available for this team since he's been drafted. Now, he's not the type of back that's going to take over games, right? You're not going to go into a football game and say Devin Singletary can take this thing over and be the difference. But he can be a really solid 1A running back. I think that's very reasonable. As far as his 2023 outlook, there's one big question. Will he be back? When you listen to Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane talk about Devin Singletary, they love him, right? They talk about how selfless he is, great teammate, how consistent he is, obviously very hardworking. I think there's a lot to appreciate about Devin Singletary and what he's brought to this football team since he's been drafted. He's basically been the Bills starter the entire time, or at least the last 3 years, kind of platooned with Frank Gore in 2019, but he's been the lead back. And the last 2 seasons in particular, over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, he's been really, really solid. Now, when it comes to his contract, you have to ask yourself, does it make sense for this football team right now to pay him? Spotrac.com projects that Devin Singletary will receive an average annual salary of $5.5 million per season. So, 3 years, $16 million in some change type deal. That feels right to me in terms of a valuation for what he's delivered. And, the fact that he's 20, this will be his age 26 season coming up. I personally would not pay him. I'm not really a proponent of paying running backs. I think that's proven to be a bad decision in the NFL. You just look at the history, it's not good. And in Singletary's defense, he's not like a 10, 11, $12 million back, right? He's a $5.5, $6 million back. And that makes it more digestible. But I wouldn't pay him. I think he has a replaceable skill set, and you do have other options, including James Cook and Nyheim Hines. So the replaceability of the skill set, the history of paying running backs, and the fact that you do have some other options makes it easy for me, for a team that's kind of cap tight in the Bills, to say thank you, but we can't commit cap space to you given the current structure of the team, right? I think this is the type of player you just let walk. You thank them for their contributions and realize that you just have to move on. I think there's a chance that they pay him, though. I will say that. You listen to the way that Allen Bean and McDermott talk about Devin Singletary, and I can be convinced that they're going to pay him a contract. I wouldn't do it. Let's move on to James Cook. 2022 second-round pick, number 63 overall. So this was his rookie season. He's 23 years old, turns 24 in September. He's entering year 2 of a 4-year, $5.8 million contract. So right there, that's the value of a running back that you pick in the draft. 4 years, $5.8 million. Devin Singletary, after 4 pretty good seasons for the Bills, is going to make that per year, not across 4, right? No value out there quite like a player that provides meaningful contributions on a rookie contract. In 2022, James Cook had 89 rushes for 507 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's a very solid 5.7 yards per carry, 21 catches for 180 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So for the season, he had 110 touches from scrimmage, 687 scrimmage yards, and 3 touchdowns. He played 25% of the Bills' offensive snaps, no snaps at all on special teams. As far as his 2022 review, I thought he showed a lot of progress throughout the season. I think from the start to the finish of the year, I don't think any player on the roster showed more in-season growth than James Cook. I thought the game was really fast for him early on, where you can tell there just wasn't a lot of nuance to his plan. It felt like his feet were ahead of his brain and just kind of fell over himself and didn't show a lot of nuance and technique running the football. But I think it started to slow down for him, and he became more and more involved in the offense and did more good things for the football team. Thought he really settled in and ran the ball well down the stretch after it looked really fast for him early on. I would have liked to have seen him more involved in the passing game. You know, that was kind of a big selling point with James Cook, was the receiving skill set, right? He gives you speed, pass catching ability. And I think 21 catches across 16 games is not the type of volume that I'm looking for in terms of getting the football to James Cook in the passing game. Now, there's some reasons for that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, but I feel like that was an area where the Bills just didn't get him going enough. Now, we all remember that he fumbled on his first ever NFL carry, but we probably haven't talked enough about how he didn't fumble again. So 1 carry, 1 fumble, and then his next 109 touches, he didn't fumble the football. And I loved how he bounced back from that. James Cook only was on the field for 13 pass blocking snaps all season long. That's an extremely low number. 13 snaps all year long on the field as a pass blocker. And that probably took away some from his opportunity to be involved as a receiver, right? If you're on the field on passing downs and you only run routes, there's a predictability there that hurts your ability to make an impact. So my 2023 outlook for James Cook is, look, this guy's in line to be the lead back. And so this offseason, he's got to get a lot of reps. I think it would be beneficial for him to add some weight, right? He's kind of got that tall, slender build. Like to see him add some weight, especially kind of from the waist down, kind of fill out those legs and add some more bulk. I think that will help him as he's about to get a pretty sizable uptick potentially in opportunity. I think he's got to develop in pass protection, right? If you want to be an every down back in the NFL and command more volume, you have to pass block. And that's an area where he's got to show growth. That's going to help the team, obviously, but it's going to help him provide a bigger impact. And then there's a lot of hype for his receiving skill set, right? Route running and hands, but there's more to it, right? You have to develop timing and feel in the passing game. I think that's going to be really important for James Cook this offseason, is to develop that chemistry with Josh Allen, develop that feel, and become a bigger factor in this passing offense, because I think James Cook can be the type of back that catches at least 50 balls every year, at least, right? Potentially 60, 70 balls a year. And he caught, a third of that. So develop your feel and timing in the passing game. It's not just routes and hands. And this guy's in line for a big role, especially if Devin Singletary walks. So James Cook, obviously, you look at him as one of the players on this roster that has the opportunity to develop and really deliver a greater impact after a strong rookie season where the flashes were exciting. But there's some areas to his game where he can really develop and position himself to be a big-time piece of this offense. Valentine's Day is coming up, which means romance is in the air more than usual. I don't need to tell you all lovebirds about that. You've probably had your date plans on the calendar for weeks, but have you found the perfect Valentine's Day gift yet? Whether you're celebrating this day of romance or whether you're ready to pop the question, you can find jewelry as unique as she is with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. At BlueNile.com, you can find the perfect piece of jewelry for life's special moments, or even create the custom engagement ring of her dreams. Their simple online tools let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft the perfect piece to your specifications. Every order is insured and arrives quickly in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shipping is free, and so are returns. Right now, you can save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for up to 50% off. BlueNile.com. All right, we got some more running backs to talk about. We'll get to Nyheim Hines and Taiwan Jones in this segment. Nyheim Hines, acquired via a trade. I'm sure somebody will tell me I pronounced that wrong. Whatever it is. Acquired in a trade, a 2022 in-season trade with the Indianapolis Colts. The Bills, of course, sent Zach Moss and a 6th-round pick for Nyheim Hines, who is 26 years old, turns 27 in November. Now, his contract is really interesting. He's entering year 2 of a 3-year, $18.6 million deal, obviously, that he signed with the Colts. Now, the Bills have a ton of flexibility with this contract because there is no guaranteed money left on the deal. So something is going to happen here. He can be cut, and the Bills could save $4.8 million with no accumulation of dead cap space. I wouldn't expect that to be the case. I would expect a reworked contract that accomplishes 2 things. Number one, it gives the Bills a lower cap hit for Nyheim Hines. I don't think they want to commit $4.8 million to him this year. But also give Nyheim Hines some guaranteed money, because I'm sure that's something on his mind. He's looking at this contract and there's nothing guaranteed on it. So I think you can rework this situation to lower the amount of money you're going to pay Nyheim Hines and give yourself more cap space, but also give him some assurances with some guaranteed money. In 2022, with the Bills, Nyheim Hines played in 9 games. He had 6 rushes for -3 yards, 5 catches for 53 yards. So 11 touches on offense. He did have the receiving touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, against the Dolphins. He had a big impact in the return game. Averaged 29.2 yards per kick return with 2 kick return touchdowns, which is especially impressive when you consider that there were only 6 kick return touchdowns in the NFL all season, 2 of them from Nyheim Hines. Obviously, he was the only player with more than 1. And then I also think Hines did a very solid job as the Bills punt returner, averaged right at about 10 yards per punt return, but it was consistent fielding and mostly consistent decision-making. There were a couple there where I didn't love that he let it bounce, but I thought his decision-making and ball security was really strong for the Bills as their punt returner. And so I like what he brought on special teams. I obviously wish he was more involved within the offense. So let's talk about that. In terms of his review, I thought he made the biggest impact that he could with the opportunity that he had. The return stuff was big. Obviously, the Patriots game. There were other games this year too where he really set up the offense in good shape. So huge value on special teams, but minimal chances on offense. I can't really fault him for that. So in 2023, I'm looking for Hines to have a bigger role on offense while also handling those return duties and just being mindful that this guy is capable of a whole lot more on offense. I mean, one of the most productive pass-catching backs in the NFL since he's been in the league. And so I think you can unleash him a whole lot more on offense. I mean, 11 touches in 9 games on offense. It's not enough for a player with his explosive skill set when you needed to have more balance to your passing offense. And of course, the contract here is a layer that we can't overlook. Something's going to happen here, and it should be a benefit to both Hines and the Bills. Let's talk about Taiwan Jones. He's acquired through a free agent signing. He signed 1-year deals with the Bills each of the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, and 2022. He's 34 years old. He turns 35 in July. His contract is expired. He completed his 1 year, $1 million, $1.3 million deal with the team. In 2022, he played 0 offensive snaps and 305 special team snaps and was 3rd on the team in special teams tackles. As far as his 2022 review, Taiwan Jones continues to provide leadership, right? Big-time 4-phase special teams player. I will say, and I said this last year, and I'll say it again this year, I think this was his least impactful year yet on special teams. I think that's 2 years in a row of declining special teams production from Taiwan Jones. Now, obviously, leadership and a glue guy for the team, it's not like he's taking away anything from the roster, but I think for this type of player, you'd hope to get a little bit more. When he's not giving you anything on offense, I'm looking for a bigger impact on special teams. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, he just finished his age 34 season, and it's 2 years of decline. So as far as his 2023 outlook, I'm looking at my notes right now, and I have the word retired with a question mark. If he wants to play, I'm sure the Bills will give him that chance. I mean, they bring him back seemingly every year. He gets a C on his jersey. He doesn't really practice during the week. He doesn't play in the preseason. I mean, this guy runs down the field on kicks and punts and blocks on kick and punt returns. I mean, this is what this guy does. He's had a 12-year career now as a running back that has 72 total touches from scrimmage in 12 years. I mean, the guy's had one heck of a career as a special teams player that provides leadership, but you have to wonder if this is the end of the road. You have to wonder. We'll see. If he wants to play, I got a feeling the Bills will have a spot for him, but I feel like the impact over the last 2 years has really ticked down. This year, the only app you need at your Super Bowl party is FanDuel. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America. Of course, that's FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers join today to get started with $150 in free bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just sign up at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose, at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's talk about Reggie Gilliam. We'll lump in the fullback here with the running backs. I didn't want to put him with a tight end, so we'll talk about Reggie Gilliam here. A undrafted free agent in 2020. 25 years old. He turns 26 in August. As far as his contract, remember the Bills extended him just before the start of the season. So he's entering the first year of a 2-year, $4.6 million contract. In 2022, he didn't have any rushing attempts. He had 8 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown and was on the field for 17% of the offensive snaps, which was the highest of his career. I think up from 14% last year. And then, of course, a 4-phase special teamer was on the field for 78% of the Bills' special teams snaps. As far as his 2022 review, I mean, the guy did his thing. Contributed as a lead blocker, career high with 8 catches, heavily involved on special teams. I mean, every team in the NFL has a role player like this. That is your fullback that kind of does a little bit of everything. Obviously, Gilliam doesn't run the ball much for the Bills. I think he might have had 3 rushes last year. I mean, that hasn't proven to be much of what he does. And it'd be kind of nice to have him do some short yardage stuff, but they haven't really leaned into that very often. But every team has a player like this, and the 4-phase special teams value to go with 17% of your offensive snaps, you can understand his value to the football team. As far as his 2023 outlook, it's more of the same. Play special teams, fill in on offense when the Bills want to use a fullback, which is around 15, 17% of the time. So that's the players. Let's now kind of get into the overview, and we'll get into what do they have, what do they need, what do I like, what I don't like about the makeup of this position group. Well, what do they have? Obviously, a bright young running back in James Cook. They have an established player in Devin Singletary whose contract is about to expire. They have an underutilized player with game-breaking speed in Nyheim Hines who figures to make a bigger impact in 2023. Solid fullback in Reggie Gilliam, and then Taiwan Jones. What do they need? I got 3 things written down here. Number 1 is figure out Nyheim Hines' contract. You're not bringing him back next year for a $4.8 million cap hit when he doesn't have any guaranteed money on his deal. You're going to do something there. You also need to make a decision on Singletary. I would let him walk. There's a piece of me that feels like the Bills are going to pay him like a 3-year, $16 million deal. That would not surprise me at all. I think that this running back room needs a true downhill runner. Someone that brings size, physicality, and pass protection skills. That is a missing skill set in this offense. And I think you can accomplish that by using a mid-round pick or a low-cost vet. I mean, look, mid-round picks like a Damian Pierce last year, 4th-round pick. Tyler Algier. I mean, when was he drafted? Like the 5th round? These backs all the time. Isaiah Pacheco with the Chiefs. You can get these players. You got to get one of those guys that's big, 5'11", 220 pounds, runs angry, physical, moves piles, can pass block, and, give you value on special teams. You can get that, whether it's a mid-round draft pick or a low-cost vet, minimum type contract. But I think they need that type of player because I think that type of player can, be utilized a lot in short yardage as well. And taking some of those carries away from Josh Allen is a good thing. I think Devin Singletary stepped up in that area, but I don't think the Bills have ever had a good short yardage back when, Josh Allen has been their quarterback. Maybe like the beginning of Frank Gore in 2019, but I mean, Zach Moss was never good. And you never really had this like physical, angry runner. So that's what I want to see added to this running back room. What do I like about the makeup of this running back room? At low cost. I think you have minimal funds invested here. If they do what I think they're going to do with Hines and not bring back Singletary, you'll have a nice low-cost running back room, which should always be your priority. When you're paying a franchise quarterback like Josh Allen, you need to make concessions elsewhere on your roster. The most obvious place is running back. I like that there's youth here. You got a bright young player in James Cook. I mean, even Nyheim Hines as a role player is a young player, even Reggie Gilliam. I like the age makeup of this group. And of course, I like the speed and receiving ability that they have. You got legit speed in Hines and Cook. You have legit receiving ability in both of those players. And that's something that really didn't exist when it was Singletary and Moss or Singletary and Gore. You never really had speed or really exciting receiving skills. You do with Hines and Cook, who we fully expect to be back next year. What I don't like about this room, pass blocking ability. Devin Singletary is a pretty good pass blocking back, but if he walks, you're really in a spot where you don't have anybody that you truly trust. Now, you're hopeful that Cook can develop there, but I think you got to find somebody that can give you some pass pro. It's a big deal. And I think you have a true lack of size and power dynamics from this group. So get that downhill bruiser. You can get them. There's plenty of them in this draft class. Plenty of them. We'll talk about them when, once we kind of move further along here. But as I bring up stuff here, whether it's going to be the wide receiver 2, slot players, left guards, running backs that give you downhill ability, sleepers on the defensive line, safeties that could potentially start, I'll give you those players. And as we go through these performance review conversations, it'll really come to light to what this team needs. So now we've been through quarterbacks and running backs, and we know we making this, okay, what do we need? QB2. What do we need in the running back room? A downhill player that brings size, physicality, and pass blocking skill. And so we'll create this to-do list, and then we'll figure out how to attack this to-do list. So that's how this whole performance review thing works. I hope that you're enjoying it so far. Tomorrow, I think we're going to do herd mentality. And then we'll, get into other position groups later in the week, or if there's big breaking news, we'll get to that as well. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. We'd love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.